Hello everyone, I just finished playing Pentiment on stream on Twitch, and now it's time for the review. What can I say about Pentiment? Pentiment catched me by surprise. It's mastercrafted to keep you rooted for its entire playthrough. Everything it does well. Story is carefully but progressively evolving. It truly felt like the writers knew how to create suspense and keep the player engaged. The roots are set early, and the mystery is prevalent all throughout its 3 chapters, coming into an epic conclusion with the mystery resolution in its finale. This is not a gameplay-focused title at all. It lets the player know quite early that dialogue, choices, plot are the main focus, and to be honest, the added gameplay features complement the core of the game quite well. Let's go over the usual sections, minus a few ones that don't make sense regarding the genre of this title, such as progression systems, combat, and leveling. For the first one, which is NPCs and characters, every now and then comes a game that truly cares about character development. I just reviewed Sunday Gold, and although I can say with 100% certainty that every single character there is extremely complex and multi-layered, it kinda works because the cast is just way too small, giving the developers ample space to flesh out these characters. Pentiment does the same, but the big difference here is that we have a much bigger ensemble of characters. It uses the premise of games like Vampire, where every single character you meet or see you can talk to, and this person will actually play a role in how the story unfolds. Now, Pentiment takes place in a small Bavarian town of Tassing and nearby Kiersau Abbey during the 16th century, Europe. You play as Andreas Maler, a clever illustrator caught up in a series of murders in Tassing and Kiersau Abbey over the course of 25 years. Players will be responsible for conducting their own investigation to decide the fate of the community, but each decision will have lasting consequences and inexorably draws Andreas closer to the center of an underlying conspiracy. This is important to set up what I'm about to describe next. As the story unfolds and the mystery gets ever so close to being found out, you'll interact with every single person living in the Abbey and Tassing, interrogating them, hearing gossip to find out the truth of the secret of this town. Characters are superbly designed and intellectually multi-layered. You'll grow to know and understand them across many years that this story takes place. As years pass, you'll appreciate the growth of these characters and start to even like a few that left an initial bad impression on you. Whenever a game has something like this happen, you know the writing and character growth is on point. For its story, the basic premise of story in Pentiment is as follows. Step into a living illustrated world in a time when Europe is at the crossroads of great religious and political change. Walk in the footsteps of Andreas Maler, a master artist who finds himself in the middle of murders, scandals, and intrigue in the Bavarian Alps. The plot starts out very slow and simple, but as a murder happens, it rapidly escalates into a fantastic detective-esque story where your character will try to piece in all the clues and interrogate as many characters as possible to find out who is responsible. Now, something that some people may dislike is this game will offer you plenty of different suspects for the murders, but it will also give you a time restriction. I believe this is done to make the story feel more impactful and actually alive, trying to relay the urgency of finding out who the murderer is, because consequences will start happening, and at the same time, it brings in more immersion. I do admit that detective and investigation plot games not offering a time restriction can seem a bit odd, as there seems to be no urgency in solving a murder in most of these games. I think it's well done here. You want to be able to complete all your journal quests regarding all suspects. It encourages the player to replay in order to see all avenues, something I am now doing on a second playthrough. What I truly love about Pentiment is the developer's confidence in bringing in diverse topics to dialogue, current to the time that the game takes place. You may not understand it all if you aren't an history buff. I won't admit I did, but it makes sense and helps the story move along. A lot of these topics have direct ramifications on how the main core of the game moves and changes. Overall, Obsidian constructed a fantastic story that has a deserving payoff at the end. Choices made during the story will affect the survivability of some characters and how their own story unfolds. It's all very rewarding after the credits roll to see the growth in every character, especially our protagonist. We go to the gameplay. I'll be short on this section. Truly, there is not much to talk about here. There are no progression systems, and although you can't call this game a point and click because you can also walk and run with your keyboard, it's very much a point and click adventure historical game at heart. Where it differs is mostly on dialogue choices that will affect the story tremendously, and also background choices for your main character. Overall, you have your journal, your map, your glossary, and you'll be traveling around speaking to different characters in order to solve the main mystery of the game. Examining objects, plants, and solving puzzles, although these are far and few between. Very simple gameplay loop, typical of the genre the game is inserted on. The core of the game is in its plot and characters. Music and sound effects. You'll notice music is scarce in Pentiment, and although it happens to be scarce, the developers know just the right moment to insert beautiful ballads and terrifying tracks whenever something dreadful happens. The scarcity of in-game music can be seen as a minus, but whenever it hits, it will make the moment feel 100 times more impactful and eventful. The tracks are also superbly well done and reminiscent of the era the game takes place. As for sound effects, I haven't seen better in a long time. The lack of music also helps sound effects feel more impactful, as you'll be hearing them all the time, roaming from house to house. It's just well done. When you are out and about near farms, you'll hear cows mooing, sheep, chickens. But if you go to the forest, the sounds of birds sheeping, water falling is way more prevalent. Same thing as at the Abbey, depending in which section you are. The sound effects are very neated and carefully thought upon. The developers had to deliver on sound effects, especially due to the decision of music scarcity throughout the game. One example, rainfall sounds especially are so immersive and believable. They sound completely different if you are outside compared to the inside, for example of a house or an abbey. They just help the game feel even more alive and immersive in my opinion. World design and art style. This should be the featured section for Pentiment, and with good reason. The art style is truly superb, the usage of different vivid colors when roaming the town, compared to the grey and dark colors of the abbey, along with an accurate artistic representation of the 16th century foundations, helps connect the player to the story in a way I thought it wasn't possible. When you boot the game for the first time and start to roam around, it's clear the developer's inspiration to works of art and colors used during the time this game takes place. Everything feels pixel perfect and when it comes to the art style, and I couldn't see Pentiment in any other form now that I had the chance to play it. The developers also had a brilliant idea of using writing style as fonts as they were in this time area. This helps the game feel more immersive, although sometimes a bit harder to understand every word, but worth it in my opinion. They give you the choice of choosing these fonts, stylized fonts for the era that you are on, or just simple fonts to understand better. It's up to you to make the choice. When it comes to the world and the area's accessibility, you are pretty much constrained to Tassing and the Kiersau Abbey, but that's not a bad thing. After a few hours you'll gain the lay of the land and truly immerse yourself in this little town. I think a bigger scope or world would have felt out of place for the game, and perhaps it would have lost some of its charm with the way the developers handle the characters and story. We go into difficulty and replayability. There is nothing to mention on difficulty side, perhaps just the difficulty of choice and time management. The player needs to quickly figure out which clue is more important to follow with the little time they have. In the end, every clue is worth pursuing, and subsequent playthroughs will be needed to see every opportunity missed. But it's gut-wrenching knowing you didn't see what the other path you didn't take had in store, since you can't save scum as there is no quick load or quick save in this game. Replayability wise, I already spoke more or less about it in the previous sections. Due to time restrictions and the impossibility of following every clue, new playthroughs are very encouraged, and it's rare for me to jump in immediately again after beating a game, but I really was scratching my head at the end and wanted to see every path possible, so I started a second playthrough already. Overall, pretty high replay value. For its positives and negatives, as you noticed throughout this review, there is little negative downsides to speak about for Pentiment. I will point out only two things, and those are the lack of voice acting. I think a Disco Elysium voice acting update like they did for that game is due on this game. It truly would make the game feel more immersive, but I understand budget restraints and considering the price point, it makes sense. Another thing are the impact of the big choices you make in the end of each act. Although they have instant repercussions, you never find out if the choice you made was the correct one. I feel like the developer should have revealed at the very end if you made or not the right choice. You never get a clear conclusion on this if you made the correct choices. You'll understand what I mean when you go through the story and are faced with these choices. As for positives, it's everything else from the timing, on where the to place the impactful music, to the artistic design of characters and world and landscapes, to finally the intriguing plot and characters that are influenced by your choices and background. Final thoughts and the score for Pentiment. Pentiment is a fascinating historical medieval game that truly shines in its art style and writing. Budget constraints and lack of voice acting may hinder the game in its reception. All in all, it's a niche game due to its setting, so it may not garner as much attention as I might want it to garner, since it's a truly unique game. I would say it's definitely worth a buy at the current retail price. I got 19 hours for 20 euros, so it's pretty much on point, but also bear in mind that I did some achievement hunting which boosted the playtime a bit. That's it for Pentiment. It was truly superb. Obsidian have struck again, and I couldn't be happier for Josh Schroyer, the director of this game, which was also one of the main devs for Pillars of Eternity and Fallout New Vegas, two games I deeply appreciate. I hope that they get a bigger budget next time, or that they get the budget to make an update a la Disco Elysium, which will add voice acting and will truly make the game feel immersive in its completion, 100% immersive. That's it for Pentiment. Hope you liked. If you want and it will help the channel, leave a like, comment, especially feedback. I'm looking for feedback in every single video because it helps me improve the review format, the video format, anything that you can think about. Please leave it in the comments and see you on the next one. Bye.